Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to True Wealth. I'm Dave Basconi, and here in the studio with me is Maria Smith. Good morning, Maria. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yes, doing well also. We took a couple of weeks. We had Christmas and New Year's in there, so how were your how did things go?
Things went really well. Yeah, there was a lot going on. Let's see. I don't even know where to begin. It's so much. But I did a ladies' Christmas party, a tea at my house. It was the third year in a row. It's actually a party that has a somewhat long tradition. It's been going on in the area with a lot of Catholic mothers, many homeschoolers, but not all homeschoolers, a lot of Catholic women and their daughters for maybe over 20 years, but it's only been at my house for the last 3 years. And it's for ladies and their daughters, and it used to be 14 and up, but when I started doing it here, my daughter was 12, my youngest, so I asked, other people who are also in charge. I'm not the one. I do it at my house, but there's other people who help out and who are in charge of it and who send out the invites, and they do a lot. They were doing it at their house beforehand. And so we changed it to 12, so it's ladies 12 and over, and it's really a wonderful way to get together right before the holidays, right before Christmas, and we do an ornament exchange and a cookie exchange. That's wonderful. Then for Christmas we had at our home, again, it's been at our home now for quite a few years, so we had 8 of us here with our children who are in the area, 2 that are at home, and another one who is married with his wife, and my sister. And so we had people here. And then we went to visit my mom because she wasn't able to come. She's not able to get around much. So after the dinner, and then the day after Christmas, we actually went to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Yeah. My husband has a friend from college days, so many, many decades, and who is Puerto Rican, and he has a place in Puerto Rico for several months, but he also has a place in Maryland. And so we visited him. It was my first time in Puerto Rico, but my husband's second time, and I really liked it. It was really good. I like traveling, although I'm not, if it wasn't for my husband, I would not go to almost any place except Italy. That's where that's all the only place I ever really traveled to, long distance, And so that was wonderful. And then yesterday was Epiphany Sunday, and they have at the friary nearby, the Franciscan Friary, that I believe we've mentioned more than one occasion on this show and also on Rhonda's show that we used to do. The Franciscan Friary in the area had the Epiphany celebration, which was wonderful. And just saw so many people, and they have the blessed holy water, the Epiphany water, the Epiphany chalk, and also what they call the extraction of the saints. So everybody you draw out a card that has your saint for the year, your special patron saint for the year, several saints actually. And depending, I'll just show it. It says, your Franciscan saint for the year, your Franciscan blessed, your universal saint, which is one of the better known saints, Pope St. John the 23rd, and then also you get a Marian title, and you get a virtue that you should be practicing or focusing on for the year. So it's beautiful.
Oh, wow. You were very busy, had a lot of interesting things going on, and we were not quite so active, although it was quite nice. We spent Christmas with family, and New Year's pretty much, it's not a big event anymore. We used to go out a little bit, but over the years that kind of just dwindled to just us staying home. And So it was relaxing for the most part, except for the days where, you had to travel to family or family was coming over and you had to prepare the meal and all. But it was very good. I think the weather cooperated, so no one was really limited if you were traveling in the state. That's always nice. And so, had a chance to think about the last few days in 2019 and get ready for 2020. And that's always an interesting thing because the priest usually talks about it in the homily. About getting ready for the new year, what resolutions, spiritual resolutions have you made? And the one thing he pointed out was you just need to spend 10 minutes a day in prayer. And he said, if you can do that for a month, then you will it'll become part of what you do every day. You'll suddenly start to see the rewards that come with 10 minutes of quiet prayer, not something you just kind of figure out how to throw it in at some point, but it's got to be planned. And it's something that nothing can take you away from it, no distractions. And then he said, after a year's time, he goes, then you are truly on your way to becoming a holy person. Because basically, you've changed your attitude about how you live your life. And then, of course, the other part that comes with that is the evangelization, because people will start to see you as a new person. They will start to maybe inquire, you've changed, and they're noticing that it's a positive change. And he goes, that's when you can start to bring other people closer to Christ. And you do it step by step on their terms, but it has to start with you with the 10 minutes a day in prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to start with yourself. And, you said it. You said exactly how it comes to be. If you just work on yourself, and it really can start out with a tiny baby step of 10 minutes a day. I'm actually going to recommend, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, a book called My Daily Bread by the Confraternity of the Precious Blood. It's a very small book in size. It's thick, but it's very small. It's, 5 inches by 3, a very small book. It is on the thick side, and it has very short reflections for every day. And it is very simple, very easy book, kind of like, a little bit like The Imitation of Christ. But I have to say personally, I find The Imitation of Christ, and I know many people who love it, and it is obviously a beautiful book. For myself personally, I find it rather stilted language, and I don't find it as applicable or as profound to myself personally, not to deny that it can be for other people. But this book, My Daily Bread, really spoke to me and was really more something that was, I guess, suitable for my personality, you could say. And
give an example. That's kind of interesting.
Of the book?
Yeah, how it suits.
Oh, sure. Actually, you mean like something that is in the book?
Yeah, in the book, from the book that resonates with you more so than the other. Yeah.
Sure. I actually have many copies. I've given many away for a confirmation presents, and also when a friend of mine entered the Catholic Church. And I have many copies because I love it. But anyway, this one, let's see. Like, I just opened now randomly. It says, Chapter 9, Frailty of Human Nature. This is Christ speaking, and he says, My child, all human beings are weak. Do not think that you are stronger than others. Circumstances do not create the weakness of a man. They simply draw it out and show what he really is. You must be convinced of this fact. Your will is weak, and your blind human desires are strong. It should not be too hard for you to admit your frailty. See how often you are troubled by a small matter. At times you resolve to become a better man. Then along comes a small temptation, and away goes your resolution. Hey, that sounds pretty good for the new year, too. And away goes your resolution. A small temptation, a small setback, and you're like,
Yeah. Is that did you finish the quote or the passage?
Well, I think I did. I mean, I could go on and you could go on. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, that was excellent because as you were reading it, I felt that it was really down to earth. People could relate to it. I mean, it certainly, I heard exactly, I think, what you hear when you read it.
Yeah.
It's again, down to earth and something people can relate to. And that's what starts that process. You got to get people thinking. And it has to be something that, pushes the right button. And if people can recognize themselves in a little passage like that and go, yeah, if I'm being honest, that's really me. And I just need to do a little bit more to resist temptation because, if you give in the first moments, you're done. If you're able to resist and distract yourself, then you can probably overcome the temptation. But, I can see where certain books or certain approaches would work better for other people, but I think that one would be very good for me as well.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's down to earth, and I find it very simple to understand and very profound at the same time. Actually, I'll just read a couple more on this. And each chapter, there's many chapters. Each chapter really takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes to read, and then you could spend another 3 to 5 minutes thinking about it. And actually what I've had my children do and what I've done is, since the chapters are so short, is to read the chapter at night and then read it again, the same one in the morning.
Oh, wow, yeah.
This way it reinforces more. But anyway, in the same chapter, chapter 9, a paragraph later, it says, before you can become serious about self-perfection, you must be convinced of its necessity. See how weak you are. You often tend toward what is wrong. You confess your sins today, and tomorrow you commit the same faults again. You resolve to be on your guard, and an hour later, you act as though you had never made the resolution. So actually, this really goes very, very well with the new year, too.
Well, of course. I mean, how many times people, the first, within a week, they break all their resolutions, especially the one about the diet, watching less TV, going out and exercising more. I mean, all the positive things that would probably have a very nice impact in their life. They probably lost it within the first week or two. That's what you just read speaks to that. You really have to have a strategy because I watched some shows on EWTN, and if you think of our life as we're in a battle, it's a spiritual battle. There's good and evil evil doesn't quit. Evil doesn't take any time off. And until you recognize that there's an enemy out there wanting to take you down, you're going to not be vigilant. You're going to not be on guard. And I think that's how people start to drop the resolutions. It's too hard. You're never going to lose all that weight. You're never going to benefit from this. Why don't you go back and do what you really enjoy doing, and then there you go again. But once you recognize there's someone out there, the devil's trying to take you down, you can then start to put together a strategy and start to win, start to actually win a few battles here. And that also ties into turning to Christ because, God is going to win if you choose to be on his side. And if you choose not to employ God's resources, then you're going to lose. I think it gets down to, it's about as simple as that, or at least that's been my experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Everything you said. Let me just go back a tiny bit to the temptation that you were talking about, because that, too, is very important. If you, like, as you said, if you deal with the temptation in its early stages, which is really that famous idiom or proverb comes to mind, nip it in the bud. You stop it when it's small. Oh my goodness! It's like something is growing, a really thick, strong tree. You cut it down when it's young, when it's little. It's easy. You can just actually pull it out with your hands. But when it gets really hard, or even a weed, sometimes I've been pulling weeds, and some of them, those roots are so deep, and you're pulling. You're like, oh my goodness! Almost as if you're going to pull, yards of the garden with you. And whereas when the weed is very small, it's much easier. So that was the one thing about nipping in the bud. And then what you were talking about, strategy and the resolve. You have to have a strategy. Now, does that mean you can't change it? Of course not. Just like in wartime, you have a strategy, but it has to be a flexible one. And I think that's really the key. You can't have a strategy that's set in stone, and you cannot not have no strategy. You have to have a strategy that you can change and alter, be flexible about when you need to. And what you were saying with the strategy, how important that is to have the strategy and the resolve. Here again, with the beginning of the new year, having a firm will. I believe it was his sister who asked St. Thomas Aquinas, how does one become a saint? And St. Thomas Aquinas said, will it. I've also heard a different way of putting it, which actually I like even better. I've heard will it much more often. But in the recent past, maybe a few months ago, I heard desire it. When you desire something so fully, no matter what it is, whether it's a new house, a job, whatever, whether it's this particular person you want to marry or you desire it with all your heart. And that's how we have to desire wanting to become a saint. We have to desire it, and then when you desire something, you get a strategy. You get a plan. You desire to buy a house. You really want that house. You're going to get a plan about how you're going to save the money, how it's going to work out. You desire to marry somebody. You get a plan. You don't just say, let's get married and have no idea where you're going to live, what you're going to work, what state you're going to be. You have a plan for the wedding and for the marriage. So you have to have the resolve and the strategy. And the other thing, too, what you're saying, it gets too hard and people give up. Well, that's it. The giving up is the only thing that is wrong. The only thing that will make you a loser is giving up. Failure doesn't make you a loser. Making mistakes doesn't make you a loser. As long as you get up and keep on going. St. John Paul II, never give up. Never, ever give up. Never, ever, ever give up. I saw this meme a long time ago about this man who was coming down a mountain, and he was exhausted, and he had the ropes, he's coming down, and then he says, in the meme, it shows him saying, oh, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I give up. And then the picture gets bigger, and you see that he's 5 inches away from the bottom.
Oh. Yeah, that's good. That's good. But, yeah, that's the other thing. When you do get knocked down and you get up, you're always smarter when you get up. Matter of fact, I've read in my travels that some investors, they don't want to invest money with a first-time business, or someone just has an idea and starting a business, and it's their first time out, first attempt. They don't want to invest money with that person. They want to invest their money with someone who started a business and failed and then wants to start a second business. Now, obviously, they're going to want to know more about this person, but their thinking is that this person learned something from their first failure is not going to commit those mistakes in their second business. In other words, they've done the practice run, and they know the course, and so they can be successful on the next go-around. So I thought that was kind of insightful, that failure does not mean that you're a loser. Failure could mean that you're now stronger and in a position to do good things. And I think there's a proverb that says, man learns little from success, but much from failure. So it's the same thing. It's been with us forever. The other thing about temptation, we may have touched on this before, but, some people just feel that if they're tempted, that's sinful. No. Being tempted, getting a thought, a bad thought or whatever is not your fault. We all have emotions, and whether someone makes you angry or something else happens and you get these bad thoughts, that's a first response that's tied to emotion, and you're not responsible for that. It's what you do with it afterwards, after a few seconds, then that's when you become accountable. So if you go, I just want to slap that person into next week from something they said to you and you get angry, okay, now if that thought entered your head, that's an emotional response. And, okay, you're not responsible for that, but after about 5-10 seconds, you've had a chance to think about it and deal with it in your mind, then your response to it is what you're accountable for. You can choose to, count to 10, walk away, or say something in a calm voice, I'll get back to you, versus, actually punching the person out. Then those two you would be responsible for. One is good and one is bad. So you have to see temptation as what it really is, and that we are people with emotions, and so just that's part of the strategy of dealing with anything that comes your way, whether it's, like I said, dealing with a person or an event, or dealing with resolutions that you make to make your life better. So all of that's very important to understand, and that comes about, I think, by living a little bit, talking to other people, reading things that are can be very insightful to this part of your life.
Yeah. It comes about by actually wanting to become better, to improve yourself, to get closer to God, which is really what self-improvement is all about. The closer we get to God, the better we become, the more like God we become, and the more loving we can become, the more true we can become. Yeah, and with the temptation, what you said is exactly right, too, because that is what the saints say, too. The temptation, the bad thought, the inclination is not your fault. And actually, it might be hard to accept or understand this, but actually the temptations are little trials, little tests, little to prove that we are, to help us to get strong, to prove that whose side we really are on. I mean, if we don't get the temptations, it would be easy for us to say, I'm on God's side, I do everything right, I do everything for God. But when those temptations come, that's when we have to really decide each and every time, because if we have a sinful inclination and we do it, well, we're not on God's side. We've chosen the devil's side, at least momentarily, until we, get back up and realize it and get right back on the right road. So the temptation is not and actually I think, from what saints say, the temptations are good things for us because it builds up our spiritual muscles.
Yeah, there you go. And it's like it gives you a chance to practice what you know you should be doing. And through practice, it becomes second nature. You don't even have to think about it too much. You just know how to deal with it. Some people, and this works, you get this strong temptation, immediately say a Hail Mary. And by the time you finish the prayer, the temptation is long gone. And you're really in a different mood, frame of mind, and your mood has changed, everything, and you've dealt with it, and you move on. It's a really simple way to do that. Anything. Just a few words that shows the temptation that you're in charge. It is not in charge, and you dismiss it, and it's like a fly that lands on you, okay? You wave your hand, and the fly is gone. You dealt with it, and now you can get back to what you were doing. So, But Maria, how are we doing on time?
We still have about 5 minutes.
Okay. If you have some other thoughts,
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, because this is a very interesting and deep subject. But go ahead, because I think. Go ahead.
I think this is a really good subject that we touched upon today about resolutions, strategy, the battle, and about never giving up. That is so important. That should be top priority strategy. No matter what, I will not give up. You know, every person gets a certain amount of time here on earth, but no matter, even the longest life is really very, 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 very brief in comparison with eternity. So no matter how difficult situations may be, and most situations don't last a whole life for a person. I suppose there are some, but for the average person, they certainly don't. You have the good times as well as the bad times. But let's say even a bad time were to last decades. We do know about people who are paralyzed all their lives. What if it's to last your whole life? But even if it does, and you go to heaven, when this life here is just so brief. And that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, which I had a thought about, that really, some religions, and I've heard actually from Ben Shapiro, I think that the Jews have about 630-something laws that they have to follow. Well,
I'm sorry, say again?
I believe that the Jewish people have about 630-something rules that they have to follow for their religion. The Catholic Church gives us, besides the 10 Commandments, which we share with the Jews, and of course all the Protestants, besides the 10 Commandments, the Catholic Church gives us 5 or 6, I think it used to be 6 now, it's 5 precepts of the Catholic Church. But I was thinking, Jesus really boiled it down. Really, what the human person has is 10 commandments, 10. And the human person Jesus boiled it down to two greatest commandments, which are love the Lord your God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. And actually, I was thinking, those 2 greatest commandments can be boiled down to one word. One thing. We're only commanded one word, one thing to do for all our lives, and that is to love.
Yeah, I knew I was going to let you say it, but I knew that was the word. But and I think that's the appeal, at least for me, is how Jesus keeps everything simple. His parables, his life, he didn't mince words. He spoke about the problem that was at hand. It didn't matter who he was in front of, whether it was, the Jewish leaders or Pontius Pilate. He didn't back down. And that got him to the cross, but that's when that is where his full power was released, was when he died on the cross. And 3 days later, the resurrection. And, that's just, I think about that sometimes, about certain days that he lived and being there, somehow being part of the crowd, or somehow being there at the foot of the cross. I mean, that right there is just, it's almost hard to put into words if you can actually get deep into the moment, being there at the trial, or especially at the foot of the cross. I mean, that, how many people, it's just amazing. I'm kind of losing words to describe it, but I think if you can find that quiet spot and start to try to get there, walk with Christ during his lifetime, it can't help but change you. It's got to help everything else we've already been talking about keeping resolutions, about having a strategy, about not giving up. Because who was the best example of not giving up despite the fact that he was going to a gruesome death? That right there is the role model for everybody. And I don't know how anyone could not benefit from spending 10 minutes in prayer and starting to get to know Christ on a more personal basis.
Yeah, exactly. That's wonderful. And I think we can end with that thought. And it was a wonderful show. Happy New Year to everybody. A most blessed, abundantly blessed New Year for everybody.
Yes, and hopefully we'll all do a better job of all the things that we want to improve in our lives. So with that, let's close with a prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen. Maria, have a great week.
You too, Dave. Bye-bye, everybody. God bless.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.